So here's the question I have for you today. Are you someone who has had an experience where you have been in a particular time in your life where everything was just falling apart, like all at once? Like all the things that you were working on and you built, it felt like they just kind of crumbled away. Relationship maybe ended, the job that you had, the identity that you were carrying, maybe it stopped fitting for you. I'm finding that a lot with my clients. And even the feeling of connection or faith that you had gets quiet or feels like there's less of it. And it's not just like this sense of sadness. It's like you felt lost or disoriented, like you almost like the ground under you is just slipping away and you couldn't get your footing. That's a good way to say it. Get your footing. Uh, and what I find is the hardest part in those types of experiences isn't necessarily the pain, because if you're having pain, then that like explains some of it. It's that you can't fix it. You can't get out of it. You can't, it's almost like you have to sit and move through it. You can't just think positively about it, redirect your energy. There's just all these different challenges around that circumstance. And somewhere in the middle of all of that, you're kind of like, all right, what is wrong? Like, what is wrong with me? What is going on? Why do I feel disconnected? Why aren't things getting better? Where did my connection to spirit go? Where did I go? Have you ever been in a place like that? Well, if you have, then today's episode, I think, is going to fit you well.
So self-service, that's the way. Welcome to Soul Talk, shine today.
And if you've felt that way, or if you're feeling that way now, then I hope that this episode creates some shift and some awareness for you, because I think what you've been going through, a lot of people feel like it's a process of kind of breaking down. But what I look at, and I think about this in my own life, which I'll share with you some of those experiences, is more of a breakthrough. It's a breakthrough disguised as a breakdown. A lot of spiritual guides and teachers and speakers and healers have called this something. What have they called it? The dark night of the soul. The dark night of the soul. And nobody really um, has been able to explain exactly what it is or what it's actually doing, what the purpose of it is, or really how you even move through it without just losing yourself completely. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So drop a heart in the comments, friends, if you've ever been in that dark night of the soul feeling, or if you feel like maybe you're in one now. Give me 2 hearts. I want to see you. And I want you to know that you are seen. I am really excited about this episode because this topic, it's not a light one, but it is one of the important conversations I think that we need to have, because when we start talking about the dark night of the soul, it's something that so many people go through. And a lot of people, they go through it alone. I know I went through it alone, thinking that there was something wrong with me, thinking that I had lost my spiritual connection, or that I failed my um, the lesson or the what I was supposed to learn from particular things in life. And I would even say at times felt abandoned. I would say I felt abandoned from spirit. I felt abandoned from like humanity. And I want you to know that you're not. And I want to give you a different perspective. And change that for you today. So, as we step into Soul Talk, friends, Soul Talk, if you are new here, is where soul meets real life. And I am Dawn Johnston. And this is a space where we talk about all things spiritual, practical, grounded, everyday stuff in everyday ways, because your spiritual life is not meant to be separate from your real life. A lot of people have this and this, right? And I think it's meant to live from the inside out. We are here to um, expand and to grow and to heal and to connect with that spirit, to remember who we really are. So if you're here live, say hello in the chat. I love seeing you there. If you're watching the replay, I read every single comment. So be sure to leave yours there as well. And if this podcast is supporting you, please like, subscribe, share it with someone that you think needs it. If you're watching it live on YouTube or social media, you can tag somebody that you think could benefit from it right there in the comments. And let us know in the comments how it's working for you. All right. I truly appreciate it. And it means a lot for you to be here and takes time out of your day to be with me. So thank you, friends. All right, guys. So I want to start, I guess, probably where I always start, which is just sharing things that are real in life. Because certainly I think you know enough about me to know I do not stand here and claim to teach something that I have not walked, that I am just on the outside looking in. I have been there uh, more than once. More than once. I'm sure many of you have been there more than once as well. When I think about the term uh, dark night of the soul, I think about not only like on a soul connection, what's happening internally, but I also think about the things that are happening externally, because oftentimes those are the things that get our attention, right? The things happen outside of us, the changes in our lives, the loss of relationship, the loss of a job, the loss of a particular person. Maybe they walked out of your life, or maybe they passed away. And that then usually creates an awareness of some pains and wound that are happening internally. And that's the experience that I had as well. So when I think about that internal dark night of the soul, I really think most of the time it starts externally. It starts with the shift in our life. It starts with the pain that we are experiencing in life. And that can be really, really challenging to heal through. And when I experienced my dark night of the soul, and I imagine that most of you have had this experience at some point in your life, people call it different things. Um, but what I've found is that it got activated by external components. So for me, it was a series of events. So I was already connected to the angels. I already felt the presence of the angels. I absolutely felt really deeply connected to my spirit, to the angelic realm. And I also had really bad self esteem, self worth, self value. And I found that in my experience, the journey that I was on took me to places that felt like I would say felt like hell. Um, and the first one that I really remember that I would call actually a season, like a dark night season, was when I was 18. And the season at that time was I had moved out. I'd met a boy. You know, a lot of times those stories start that way, don't they? Do any of you that have had a dark night of the soul had the experience where it started with, I met a boy, or I met a man, or I met a woman, right? Like for me, that's where one of them started. And it was, of course, initially feeling that connection and I recognize that I just connected to the first person that gave me any attention. I opened myself up to the person that um, uh, asked me questions. Like I so wanted relationship and wanted love and wanted connection that I didn't even take into account anything else that was happening. So it didn't matter that he drank, a 12 pack of beer every day. It didn't matter that he smoked 2 packs of cigarettes. It didn't matter that he really didn't work. It didn't matter that he expected me to do all these things. What mattered was that he gave me attention. He was interested. And because I hadn't had that, that felt good. And so because it felt good, I kind of turned my ears and my eyes and my senses off to everything else. And that was the beginning. I met a guy, right? I met a boy that I completely handed everything of mine over to, right? I gave him money. I gave him my attention. I gave him my time. I thought and worried and tried to figure things out for him for several years. And during that dark night of the soul, what I realize now that I didn't know then was that I had began a pattern of sacrificing myself for someone else. Somebody said once to me, "It sounds like you didn't have a boyfriend, you had a project." Bingo, bingo. Any of you ever signed up for a project? And so, yes, I had a project, and I signed up for that project, and I was the project was to get this person to love me enough to stop drinking, to love me enough to stop smoking cigarettes all the time, to love me enough to go to work, to love me enough to love our child that came shortly later. Um, that was the project. And what I didn't realize is that I couldn't help him love me enough because I wasn't loving myself enough. I was not loving myself enough. Can you relate to that? Are you someone that's had a project like that, that married into it, that took that on? And, for me, what I remember about that time was I remember like begging God, begging the angels, like, help me. But it wasn't help me help myself. It was help me change him. Help me fix him. Help me be better so that he will give me the attention, the love, the presence that I want. And during those times, what I experienced a lot of was silence. And it wasn't like a quiet silence, like, okay, we're just gonna give you some space. It was a silence that at that time to me felt like absence. It felt like I was reaching for something that had always been there. The angels were communicating with me, and it felt like all of a sudden I was trying to reach and they weren't there. They weren't there. And I internalized that and made that about me, something that I did wrong. And what I realize now is that it wasn't that the angels left me. It wasn't that God didn't care. It wasn't that my guides weren't there. It's that I was slowly, little by little, shutting myself off. I was slowly disconnecting myself because of my shame, because of my guilt, because I knew even though I didn't know. You know what I mean? Like, in your heart, even if you're not intellectually thinking about it, I knew that what I was doing was not healthy. It was not right. It was not good. Um, and and so I felt like the spirit world, my angels, my guides, my team, I felt like they abandoned me. But what I recognized is that I was not abandoned and I wasn't even being punished. Uh, what I recognize is at that time, I had pulled away I had shut down, I had disconnected, I had kind of created a situation or a circumstance where I was forced, because I chose, to stand on my own, like completely on my own. And I recognize now that that journey was sacred. And I was in the middle of a sacred experience, but I didn't recognize it at the time because it was so painful. Then I got pregnant shortly after, and then introducing a baby into that whole mix. And I stayed in that situation for 3 years because obviously it took me a long time to get what I was supposed to be learning from that. And so I was in the middle of something sacred. And even though it didn't feel sacred, even though it felt the opposite of sacred, actually, um, I think that's the thing that nobody tells you about the dark night of the soul. It does not feel sacred. It does not feel holy. It does not feel right when you're in it. When you're in it, it feels like loss. It feels like pain. So let's talk about what the dark night of the soul actually is, because I do think it's a term. If you've heard that term before, just give me a yes, or heard it, or like it's something that you're familiar with, because not everybody actually is. But it is a term that gets used a lot, especially in spiritual circles. And I think sometimes it gets used in an incorrect way. And what I mean by that is, just because you're having a hard time does not mean that you're in a dark night of the soul. So every hard experience that you have, hard moment that you have, or bad week that you have is not a dark night of the soul. Even if it's a difficult month, and experiencing things like grief and loss and disappointment, those are so painful and they're absolutely real, but they don't automatically make it the dark night of the soul either. A dark night of the soul actually is coming from something more specific than that. And it's more like a profound spiritual crisis. It's a time where I think your identity starts to break down, your beliefs start to break down, the foundation or the structures that you've built around your life break down in service. This is the part we don't see at the time. In service of something deeper wanting to emerge, wanting to come through. And so for a lot of people, they recognize many of those same qualities, but they don't necessarily recognize it as a dark night of the soul. And then others, when they're going through grief or loss, consider it a dark night of the soul. But the difference is that it is a spiritual crisis where everything is kind of falling apart. That's what was actually happening to me. I was in this relationship, I was losing parts of myself, and they were the parts that needed to go away, but I didn't want to embrace what it was bringing to me yet. Right? It took me some time. I did a little bit of research because I was curious where the dark night of the soul actually came from, the term. And that term came from a 16th century Spanish mystic named John of the Cross. And what he would describe was a period of social or spiritual desolation, where the soul or the spirit feels completely stripped of all of the things that it's used to, of comforts and securities and even presence, but not from a place of punishment. This is the key. Not from a place of punishment, from a place of preparation for a deeper, more expansive connection with spirit, deeper than you've ever had before. Because the dark night of the soul is not, it does not show up for people who are struggling with their spirituality generally. It usually comes, you ready? it usually comes to people who are ready to go deeper. That's my experience. Who are asking for, wanting change, wanting to go deeper, maybe not recognizing it in that current circumstance or situation. And it comes whether you feel ready or not. And it might not be, you might not say, okay, spirit, let me experience this, this, and this, but you're like, I want to have a deeper connection. I want to open up more. I want to heal through the bullshit of my life, right? So it comes when there's a part of you or a identity or a version of you that you've been living as that has taken you as far as it can take you. And that something inside of you can call it your soul, your spirit, the divine intelligence within you, recognizes that it's time for more and loves you enough to create that for you. So, what that more is, it could be more truth, it could be more depth, it could be more authenticity, it could be more freedom, it could be more possibility, could be more love. And a lot of times, the only way to get there is to break down what was. So, what it actually looks like then, because I do think it's important to start to give you some clarity around this. The dark night of the soul often involves some kind of loss of faith, not on a permanent level, but something that happens in usually an experience in your life. And the tools that you used and maybe the church that you went to or the community that you were part of or the practices that you used to use stop working or stop working to the level that feels good, feels right. And so then you kind of in the dark night of soul, oftentimes you'll feel like you're going through the motions. And those practices that used to work feel empty. They feel hollow. Meditation, you don't feel connected the same way, or the connection that you had feels more feels quieter. It also, the dark night of the soul, also generally, in my experience, involves a identity crisis. The role that you played, the beliefs that you've had, the story that you've told about yourself and who you are, they stop fitting and it feels out of alignment. But you don't know yet what it's going to look like on the other side of it. So you don't know who you are without those identities and beliefs, and you don't know where you're going. So it can be a very confusing time. And I notice a lot of people when they're in that dark night of the soul, they isolate. And even if people are around, they still have a tendency to isolate. Um, because there's an experience that's happening that's so internal and personal and hard to understand that you just feel very alone, even if you're in a room full of people. And so the dark night of the soul is kind of like, if you think about it, as like stripping away of the things that are no longer in alignment with the next iteration of your life. So those relationships that no longer align, the careers that no longer fit, the beliefs that no longer feel in alignment, and maybe never were yours to begin with in the first place. Maybe you bought into beliefs of your family, your friends, your community, your church that actually don't fit you. And then any other version of yourself that uh, was built maybe from pain, maybe from growing up, maybe from um, uh, a need to survive rather than a need to and a desire to thrive. And so a lot of times, some of you that have been in my classes will hear me kind of call it the void. And that void is in between space between the dark night of the soul and the identity that you're stepping into, where the old stuff is starting to fall away, but the new stuff hasn't quite gotten there yet, and you're just in the frickin' middle. And you're in the middle, and it's in out of balance. It's uncertain. It's like a hurry up and wait game. Um, there's no real clarity in that, because the void is really what I would say is the hardest part for most people, because we're trained to see that there's a problem and then fix it, have a solution, right? Move quickly, find the solution, and then do that thing, whatever that is. The void, I'm going to say this strong, but the void cannot be fixed. It actually has to be experienced. It has to be uh, lived through. And so, I think about the void, and I remember trying to get out of the void. One of the ways that I would try to escape my void was to really to lie to myself, to tell myself a different story. In the scenario that I was talking about earlier, one of the ways that I would try to get out of the void just to make myself feel better, because the void felt so uncomfortable because I was such a control freak. Any of you? Are you live right now and saying, yeah, I have a control thing too. If you have a tendency to like to hold on to control, throw that in the chat. Let me know. If you're watching the replay, same thing. Control, just put in control. That was my issue. I felt so out of control in the void that I tried to double down and control, right? So I tried to make, I would even get into like manipulation with him to try to force him just to choose me, or to choose our son, or to choose health. And that control kind of took over in a lot of ways. It was not a pretty time. And in that control, that's where I started realizing, man, I really have no control. And that then some of the scenarios, some of the things, some of the identities, and some of the ways that I externally identified started falling away as well. So then I started having people around me that started showing me, and this was more through people that I was working with, because I was working like 3 or 4 jobs to just try to make ends meet. Um, and they would start, reflecting to me what I was doing in this relationship that wasn't healthy. Then I would be embarrassed, and I would be ashamed, and I would feel guilty. It was just a cycle that felt like it was never ending. And that void felt so empty. And I didn't know how to get out of it, but to try to force myself out of it. What I recognize now that I didn't then was that even though it felt empty, the void actually was not empty. It was actually full. And what it was full of was all of the possibilities and all of the energy and the seeds that I had planted that were trying to grow, but they couldn't grow under the old identity. They couldn't grow under that lower level of faith. They needed more nurturing, more a new identity, a deeper level of faith, uh, a more authentic person, a more real or truer version of me. And that all of that was living inside of the void. It was all there, and it was waiting. It wasn't necessarily waiting for me to fix it, or to control it. It was waiting for me to trust it. It was waiting for me to trust it. Now, I'm sitting here live right now, and I'm looking at my chat. I asked you, how many of you are controlling people and you just want to be in control, and that's why this can be so scary. And I had 2. I don't even believe that. There is no way that there are only two people that like to be in control, guys. So often, that's why we go through the dark night of the soul, is because we're trying to force and control and make everything be exactly how it is. And that identity needs to fall away. And the identity of trust and faith and possibilities needs to drop in. And it can't drop in if we're like this. It's not possible. So, the dark night of the soul is not the same as um like diagnosed depression. So if you are in a place where you're experiencing like hopelessness, and it is a really long-term prolonged hopelessness, or the um the inability to function on a day-to-day basis, or if you're having thoughts about harming yourself, this is different. This, then you need to reach out to a mental health professional. The dark night of the soul can, and sometimes does, overlap depression. So they can be existing at the same time. Uh, and also, that is not the dark night of the soul. Depression is not the dark night of the soul. Remember, the dark night of the soul is a spiritual experience. Depression is a medical and emotional experience. And sometimes you need to address both. Sometimes you need support in both. No shame on either side, getting the help that you need. And I want to clarify that because it's important to acknowledge it. Okay? So how long does the dark night of the soul last? Well, long enough. I'm going to give you that answer. It is going to last long enough to get you to shed. It's going to last long enough to get you to open up. It's going to last long enough to get you to listen. So it varies. Sometimes it's a few weeks. Sometimes it's a few months. Sometimes it can last years. And I guess what I want you to think about with this is the amount of time it takes isn't based on how hard you're working to get out of it, or to get through it. Actually, I think a lot of times the harder you fight and push against it, the longer it tends to last. Because when the dark night of the soul is appearing, it's not asking you to fight. It's actually asking you to let go. It's asking you to surrender. It doesn't want you to give up, but it also doesn't want you to try to control the process. It wants you to let go of controlling the process, to trust the journey and what's being broken down or taken away or needing to be released, so that you can allow what's being built in its place to show up and serve you. That's important. And I think that's worth the wait. So let's talk a few minutes about how, let me give you some practical tips how you can move through the dark night of the soul. Because I get it, guys, when I say, okay, well, you need to surrender. Saying surrender is easy, doing it is not easy. So I hear you. We didn't sign up for easy. That's not why we came to this planet, to do things easy. We came here to love and to expand and to grow, right? But there are some tools we can use that maybe can help you in the surrendering or the releasing of. So, number one, stop trying to fix it. I know that probably goes against everything inside of you. It for sure did me. But the dark night is not like a problem that we're trying to solve. It's a process, and it's helping us to expand. And the moment we stop spending all of our energy trying to force it to stop, then you actually free up the energy to move through you, so that you can move through it. Okay, so the first one is stop trying to fix it. Okay, the second one, find one thing that really feels true in connection with your heart, your mind, your spiritual journey. Just find one thing. When things feel um, unsettled or uncertain, when nothing feels solid, Find one thing that feels solid, one thing. So maybe it's I'm breathing. Maybe it's I woke up this morning. Maybe it's, you know what? I've done hard things. I can do hard things. Um, and maybe it's that there's something inside of me that is desires change, desires growth, desires um, something different. And so it's open to reaching for that, just one thing. And then hold on to that. Don't allow yourself to just drop into the heaviness and the darkness, but something that you can see and step into the other side of it, right? The third one is let yourself feel, let yourself grieve, let yourself release the emotion. Um, the dark night of the soul is loss. There is loss there. Loss of who you were, um, loss of what you have believed, loss of the life that you thought you were building or that you were creating or the way that you thought it would look. And that's okay to grieve that. Now, I don't want you to stay stuck in it, but it absolutely is okay and necessary to grieve it. Not, we don't want to bypass it. Um, we don't want to avoid the feelings of it. So if you need to cry, cry. If you need to scream, scream. If you need to beat the shit out of some pillows, beat the shit out of some pillows. If you need to sit in the sadness and just feel what's in there and what's true, that's okay. Grief is healthy. Grief is not weakness. Grief is how um, we honor the things that have mattered to us. Okay, so feel it. Don't stay stuck in it, but feel it. Number 4, stay connected. Even if connection feels lacking or disconnected or impossible. And it's hard because the dark night actually makes you want to separate and just go in. And that isolation will feed the darkness. So you want to allow yourself to be in connection or community with people that can get it. So that you don't have to explain all the details of what you're going through. Just hey, I'm in a hot spot right now. You know, I'm challenged right now, and you might not even have the words to say what it is. But if you're around people who love you, if you're around community that can support you, if you want to go out in nature where nature heals, you do the things that can remind you that okay, life is happening, it's continuing, it's not the end of the world, and it will continue. And how can I now be a part of the continuance of it? And then number 5 is trust the timing. You know, we like to do things in our time, not divine time. And this is the one that I think can be frustrating and freeing at the same exact time. You are exactly where you're meant to be. You're not failing. You're not um, doing it wrong. There's nothing the matter with you. You're not behind. You are stepping into, you are embracing, you are becoming that next iteration of yourself. And it takes, in the human realm, it takes time. I think that's one of the reasons we get out of alignment with it or feel frustrated with it is because our spirit is used to no time. And the humanness, it's time. And it does not feel good to have to sit and wait, right? But if you are actually taking action, um, if you are honoring yourself, if you're recognizing and having a belief that it takes the amount of time it takes, and that on the other side of that dark night of the soul, there is a version of you. Please hear this, friends. There is a version of you that is more um, who you are, more real, more aligned, more connected, more alive than the version on the other side. So when I think back to my first awareness of a dark night of the soul and being 18 years old to the version of me today through various iterations of that person, um, it's completely different. And that's what the dark night brings you. it 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 very likely will hurt. It very likely will stir some things up, unsettle you, unground you in ways that are difficult to go through. But the time, the energy, the expansion, and the growth will not be wasted. All right. So there's your 5 steps to move through the dark night of the soul. If you feel guided, I'd love for you to share maybe a little bit about your dark night of the soul experience. Or in a few minutes, we're going to be coming up on our heart to heart with Sunny. And so if you have a question that you'd like to ask about anything, it doesn't have to be about the dark night of the soul, certainly can be, then go ahead and throw your questions in the chat with a couple question marks in front of it. So I know it's a question for me for our heart to heart segment, which is coming up in just a minute. But right now, we are going to pause for a moment because I have something that I think you all might be interested in connecting and jotting down on your calendar. So on Wednesday, May 27th, friends, from 5 to 6:30 Arizona time, I'm hosting a free live webinar called You're Not Tired, Your Energy is Being Drained. And I think this is really important. If you are somebody who's been going through a dark night of the soul, that can absolutely have some energetic depletion. You're carrying a lot, you're absorbing a lot from the people around you, the environments around you, what you're listening to, what you're seeing, what you're paying attention to. And so you can be running on empty. You could also be giving your energy and your power away in a variety of in different ways. And so once you run on empty for so long, you're not fueling yourself up. That darkness can feel even darker than it needs to when you feel drained as well. So in the webinar that we're going to do, so that's what, next Tuesday, um, in the webinar, you will really begin to start coming back to yourself. So it's free, it's live on Zoom, and I will be there to also answer your questions directly. So the link will be in the description on YouTube, but I'm going to throw the link up here for you as well so you guys can go and grab it. It is schooloflight.biz/webinar. So it's a free webinar, May 27th. So that's what? Oh, that's more 9 days away. So it's Thursday. And I think it's really going to be a great way to help you, especially if you relate to the energetic struggle, to really have some tools. This will give you a lot of tools to be able to step into. So schooloflight.biz/webinar, friends. All right. Now, my favorite part of our Soul Talk podcast is my heart to heart with Sunny. This is where we just sit together and we talk about real life, real questions, real conversations. You can send your questions in advance, or you can drop them live in the chat right now. So a couple question marks, throw them in the chat so that we can dive into our heart to heart with Sunny. If you're watching on the replay, I do answer all of your questions. So if you have a question that's coming up and you're on the replay, you can still put your question in the chat and I will answer your question once I see that in the comments. Okay, so let's start our heart to heart with Sunny.
So pull up a chair, let your spirit speak. This is where real life and the sacred meet. Heart to heart with Sunny, where your voice is heard.
All right, heart to heart with Sunny, friends. So go ahead and throw your questions right here in the chat. I'm coming to you in just a couple of minutes. We do have people that send their questions in advance. So I have a couple of questions I am going to answer here first. Then I'm going to come live to the audience online. So first question, have you done an episode on grief? Because I think that I'm going through is very much connected to grief and I want to heal and go deeper. I have not. I have not done a podcast episode specifically on grief. So I am going to actually add that to my list of podcast topics. And while I have those of you watching replay or on live, is grief a topic that you would like to see? If it is, just type the word grief, just so I have an idea if that's something that you are interested in. And if you have other topics you would like to hear for the Soul Talk podcast, then certainly let me know what those topics are. But you can type in grief. That will give me an idea of how many of you are interested in that. But yes, I can absolutely do that. Um, okay. Oh, this is an interesting question. Okay. What is one thing you believed about yourself 10 years ago that you've completely released, and what replaced it? Oof, goodness. Guys, I don't ever read the questions in advance because I really like it to be off the cuff. But man, that's a hard one. Okay, let me think. What is one thing I believed about myself 10 years ago? So 10 years ago puts me at 45, and I've completely released. And what replaced it? I think probably I really 10 years ago was the beginning of when I actually started. I got a message in November of 2016. So I was 45. And the message was, you need to move your body every minute, every day. And I had never been somebody I've been active all my life in the sense of I'm always doing and going and being and all that stuff, but I'd never had any kind of consistent exercise practice ever in my life. I went at one time, I did a 9-month period of going to the gym with my cousin, and and that was it. And that was just, we did a few machines and we usually walked on the treadmill. So in 2016, in November of 2016, I got a very strong message from Spirit. You need to start moving your body. And it was so clear that I have a tendency to kind of argue about things. This one I didn't argue with. I knew it was like, you have got to start moving your body. And I did. So I started with walking. I started walking 30 minutes at least every single day. And then that led into lots of hiking. So I started hiking. I'd never been a hiker before that. So I started hiking, started walking, I started paddleboarding, I started surf skiing. I started doing very active, physically active things. And then a little over 2 years ago, I started doing weight training. And so I think that, one of the things I believed about myself 10 years ago is that I wasn't capable of doing it. Like, I think I believed, I'm not athletic. I'm not really very much of a go-getter as far as physical things. I'm not competitive around physical things because I never really did them. I was never on a team that outside of when I was really little, like under 10, but I never did sports in school. I never did anything physical. I never had muscles. I never tried. And so I think that identity that I held on to was that, that's not who I am. My parents, neither one of them did any of those things. So it just wasn't a part of my life. And I have absolutely 100% completely released that. And I have replaced it with, I am strong and I am healthy and I am learning and I can learn anything. Like, I can learn it. I might not like it all, but I can learn it. I'm capable of all the things. And so any of those types of physical activity, adventure, things that are fun. Like, there's some things I don't think are really fun, but so much of it has um has shifted, and in a very positive way. So that's what I say I would replace it with. Okay, so got those questions, guys. Now let's go to the chat. Okay, Rita, during a Spirit Speaks reading, I asked Spirit to come forward, but I did not get called in the reading. I felt Spirit with me, and I felt really bad that I hurt his feelings. Do we hurt them? We do not hurt them. So they're not built the same way we are as physical beings. They don't have the human emotion that we do. So they see from a much broader perspective. It's kind of like they know the whole story. So when we have comment or we have reaction or something like that, they understand where it's coming from. Like they know that it's coming from maybe, when we were younger, or maybe that it's fear, or maybe that it's grief, or maybe that it's um, um, insecurity, things like that. So we do not hurt them. What we do is we hurt ourselves by having ideas around the way that we should have been with them. That's actually where the pain comes in. But as far as a specific answer to your question, Rita, we do not hurt them. And they have a much broader perspective than even we have, because they can see all of the energy that leads to that experience, if that makes sense. So that's a great question. I hope that answered you, my friend. Um, Okay, let's see. Things that used to bring me joy no longer do. I don't feel fulfilled anymore. Michelle, I think that that is likely because you have lost part of your purpose. Sometimes when you have, sometimes when you're either not working, or maybe you're not raising a child, or maybe you're not doing the things that you used to do that you had an identity around, that you don't feel like you're as purposeful, like you don't have purpose in life. Um, I actually just had a conversation with one of my gals from my mastermind, talking about that exact thing, and purpose. And I said to her, and this might be valuable to you too, Michelle. I said, the thing is you need to be reminded of your purpose. And her set thought, she'd come to a Sedona retreat, a couple of them actually in the past, and she's like, that might help me, remind me of it, right? Like to get me back into that space. Being around people that activate that purpose energy, or that inspire you to stand more in your purpose, could be really valuable for you, Michelle. But what I would do is focus on purpose, and where, usually organizing our cabinets, that can give us purpose for a minute, but it doesn't give us purpose for a consistent basis. And because you use the term fulfilled, it feels to me like then there's some emptiness. I would look into purpose, my friend. I hope that helps. All right. I have a difficult time with my ego. So much shame on my choices. First off, I'm sorry to hear that, my friend. Um, that's difficult when you feel that way. Um, Shame means that I made choices that are in and of themselves just wrong or bad. And what I want to remind you of is we make choices based on our awareness at any given time. And oftentimes, I've had two masterminds back to back that are my masterminds that I facilitate over the last week. And one of the comments that we were talking about was that um, sometimes you only make the choices that you think are available to you. You don't know that there's so many other choices because you only have a particular lens that you can see through. So you feel like these are the only three options I have when there might be 20 options out there. But that's because of the frame of reference you have. It's because of the perspective you have and the life experience that you have. So what I would say is that if you're stuck and you tend to be in that shame cycle so often, you probably need support. I would suggest community, of course. You probably need support, because a lot of times when we're in that ego and we have these shame cycles, we just sit in the cycle and ruminate, and we need something to interrupt the thoughts. Otherwise, we're just going to cycle through the same thing we always do. We need other people to have something else to say. We need somebody to give us a different perspective. Podcasts like this, books, all those things can make a difference. And I would say community, people around you that love you, um, but not always family, because family can't always be the one to subtly suggest things. A lot of times we ignore the family messages, but we're open to people that are more like friends or even acquaintances. So I would encourage that, Barb, and that would be a great topic to talk about too, is shame, right? So I'm going to hold that, put that in there. All right. Financial recovery after narcissistic abuse. Thank you, Sunny. How to rebuild safely and trust again. Chris, that's Chrissy. Um, what I would say is you begin by trusting yourself. And when you have been in an environment or circumstance with a narcissist, one of the things that we have to remember is that narcissists do what narcissists do. And if you are somebody that feels like, oh my gosh, they took advantage of me, and how was I so stupid? And why, how did I not know this? And what could I not do? Why did I miss this? All the signs. Well, they're very good at it. They're very good at doing the thing that they do. And so it's not about you being bad or wrong, it's about them taking advantage of you. Now, that does not mean you're a victim. You can be victimized and not be a victim. So the trust has to come back to you first. You begin to trust yourself. You begin to trust your choices. You surround yourself with people that hold you in a higher space, in a kinder place, in a more loving and gentle place, because likely you did not have that, and you go one day at a time to rebuild. You learn, get educated, surround yourself with people that are aware in that particular area. So, if we're talking about financial recovery, there are organizations, there are communities. In my Elevate community, we talk about all different aspects of learning to trust ourselves. Finances can be one of them. We've done several master classes on abundance and learning how to receive and trust that you deserve to receive as well. So in your community, if you want it in person, online, but surround yourself with people that can give you the tools and the techniques and have more knowledge and wisdom than you do in that particular area. And as you learn more, then you become more gentle with yourself. And then you show up in a different way that you start to build those financial resources. I went through the same thing when I was young, and I mean, literally was on food stamps and welfare for those 3 years, and well, 2 and a half of those years, and then half a year making that adjustment out of that relationship. Um, and it wasn't a narcissistic situation because he didn't have any money, he just didn't work, but I had to learn how to recover, and I had to get out of the shame and the guilt of having needed that support because I carried a tremendous amount of that. So I want you to know we're here with you. And, if for any of you that are watching live or the replay, I encourage you to come and join School of Light. We have a free community where you can come in. We have lots of free videos that you have access to. You have access to a community. And I'd love for you to come and check it out. Go to the.schooloflight.biz. The.schooloflight.biz. And you can get registered there and have access to classes and community and support. I have a couple membership communities in there that you can check out, but it's not required to just be a part of a community where maybe you can create some safety. All right. So great questions. Thank you very much, my friend. If you are in the dark night of the soul right now, I really want you to hear this. You're not broken and there's nothing wrong with you and you are not being punished. I know it feels that way sometimes, uh, but you are being recreated. You're being remade. And the fact that you are here, that you showed up here today, that you are still reaching out and reaching for something, that is something that just tells me that you are looking for the light. And that is important. That is what your soul is exactly meant to do in this situation, is to keep going and not to get frustrated because it's not easy, but know that you are worth the journey that this is taking you on. All right. So, friends, as we wrap up, I want to invite you, drop a comment and tell me, what was your takeaway in this? Did you get some value out of it? And if you were on a dark night of the soul, I surround you in so much love and light. And I want you to know you're not alone here. If this episode meant something to you, I really want to encourage you to share it, like, subscribe, share, uh, let other people know that they can get connected here if they feel guided to. Um, and also, If you enjoyed this, we have on YouTube. If you got some value out of it, if you feel like it's something that was able to move you in any way, you can do the super chats. You can donate to keep this podcast going. We don't obviously have any fees, or we don't charge anything for this. Of course, podcasts are free, but if you want to help support my team and I as we are putting these out, we would love to receive that as well. And so that's available through YouTube on the super chats and gifts and all those kinds of things. So thank you guys so much. And as a last reminder, please remember, when we allow our divinity to guide our humanity, what we do is we shine brighter and more intentional and more aligned. And I am so grateful to have all of you here with me. I love you all, and I will see you next time. So I'm going to share my video uh, of our soul talk video with all of you. But I do want to answer the question somebody asked me, where the lyrics to Heart came from. Chris and I created them. So we wrote the lyrics, and the band that is playing the song, both the song I'm going to play right now and the Heart to Heart, are actually AI songs. So it is an AI band. Chris still has to go in and adjust all of the elements of it. But that's how we created both of them. Pretty cool, huh?
25 years on this road, rewriting every story I'm told. Love from the inside out, that's what it's all about. So self-service, hear the call, rising to the truth of it all. This is soul talk, feel the light where your soul ignites. No more hiding who you are, time to shine, you're born a star. Inspire, light the way, impact your inner fire, that's a fact. This is soul talk, time to rise, step into your power, no disguise. Walk through shadows, found my voice, now I'm here to make the choice. Real and raw, that's how we heal. Heart-based living, this is real. Soul self-service, feel the flame. Step into your power, stake your claim. This is soul talk, feel the light where your soul ignites. No more hiding who you are, time to shine, you're born to star. Inspire, light the way, impact your inner fire, that's a fact. This is soul talk, time to rise, step into your power, no disguise. Light leaders rise up strong, this is where you belong. From the inside, watch it grow, let your brilliance overflow. World needs your light right now. Plant your roots and claim your ground. This is soul talk, we rise as one. Soul alignment's just begun. No more playing small or safe. Step into your sacred space. Inspire, light the way, impact. Live in truth, that's where it's at. This is soul talk, here we stand. Light leaders hand in hand. Light leaders hand in hand. Soul self-service, that's the way. Welcome to Soul Talk, shine today.
I hope you enjoyed that little soul talk for you. And I look forward to seeing you. I will be live here on Tuesday at noon Pacific time. every Tuesday live until we get to the end of June. And then I'm going to be not live for a couple of Tuesdays because we're going to be in Ireland and Scotland. But I will look forward to seeing you next week. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your day. Thank you all, friends. Have a good one.
So self-service, that's the way. Welcome to Soul Talk, shine today.